All right, hello. Going to do a review video for musical time. Uh, Sort of maps what we did in class, and then I'll be making some more videos and things that we can add to musical time for controls, ways we can work with duration, other types of factors. So this first one's just working with musical time. I'm going to start with a patcher that used absolute time. Go here. Start with this patch. And type in a synth sound. I'm going to expand things a little bit so they're easier to see. All right, and this. It's familiar now. I'm using the upper Y values as rests. By looking for them, I exclude them and I pass everything else through to make note to play. But the thing that I'm working with today is the metro and the make note. We've been using milliseconds. Milliseconds are a form of absolute time. Mac supports a lot of different relative time arguments. And to do that, you need to be running something that keeps track of global time, of absolute time, and converts that into musical time. So I'm going to make a few short changes here. Open up. And one is going to be my comment just to say that it is musical time I'm dealing with. And then I'm going to take out the duration inputs to metro and make note. And I'm just going to put choose my synth sound over here and go about setting up what I need to do to use tempo relative time or musical time. I need a transport object. And so I'll insert the transport. It has a few inputs, a lot of outputs. Right now, I'm just worried about it starting and stopping. So I'm going to add a toggle. And in a lock patch, I can double click on the transport to get the global transport window, or I can go under extras and scroll down to the global transport, opens up the same window. Like just about everything in Max, it is a Max patcher that you can interact with, but cannot edit this. It will always stay on top of any window you have open. So I'm just going to put it down here where I have things I can set up how many beats in a measure, what gets a beat, what my tempo is in beats per minute. I can tap a tempo. I'm going to slow down to about 102. I can activate it with this toggle that looks like a button, or with the toggle going into transport, and you can see that the activate light turns on. Okay, so that is running musical time. It's defined a tempo, number of measures, and what gets one beat. And that allows Max to translate from real time, absolute time, in terms of seconds, milliseconds, into something that has musical value. And so what we now need to do is I'm going to use note values. One of the tempo relative time syntaxes for Max is note values. We can look that up in our reference. Move this over here. I usually type and search time syntax, and then look over to documentation. Time value syntax is the article I want. And down here at the bottom, it has a table of note values and how many ticks they are. I'm just going to use the note values for now. A number, an N, is that number as a note. So 1N is a whole note. 2N is a half note. 4N is a quarter note. If the D is added, that's a dotted. So 4ND is a dotted quarter note. If a T is added, that's triplet. So 8NT is a triplet eighth note. Right now, I'm just going to stick to things pretty simple. I'm going to work with eighth notes. So any of these objects that use time as a duration, absolute time can use relative time. And so I'm going to say 8n. Metro is going to send a bang message every eighth note. And the make note duration is going to be every eighth note. So now, block the patch. A couple things need to happen. If I start my metro without starting the transport, nothing happens because there is no tempo relative time happening. So I'm going to stop that. Start the transport. Now, and it starts, I can adjust the tempo. And I'm just dragging in the tempo number box. But you're noticing that the metro changes because an eighth note, the tempo is changing. So the speed, absolute speed of an eighth note is changing. But since that's also the make note duration, that stays a full note, eighth note, no matter what I do here. If I stop either the metro or the transport, the pattern will stop. I can restart the metro as much as I want. But if I stop the transport, it stops, even though the toggle is still on. Now, if I want to change values, I need to not send integer numbers or floating point numbers. Once I do that, I'm back in absolute time. I can do it. I can unlock the patch and put the integer back in for metro. Start the transport, start the metro. But now if I turn in I can stop the transport and the metro's still going to work. It's a little bit of a bug that the eighth note still works in the make note. And I can't tell you why that's so, but going to stop that. And I'm just going to reinitiate this metro object by changing something, or not changing it, but retyping. And you can probably hear if you go back in the video that when I switched to 200 or 250, it was playing at a different speed. What I need to do is send symbols. Symbols are interpreted. Their numbers in their text are interpreted as text. So if I want to change values, the easiest thing would be create a collection of messages. So 4ND. Or 4n. And I want a message, not an object. 8n. $8ND. And I'll just do one more. 16n. And in this case, I would like to keep my metro and my make note duration synced up. So I'm going to use a send object. Call it note values. Tie each one of these messages to its input. Now I can receive note values and use that as my duration input. Can copy this with an option, drag, connect to this. All this time my transport's been running. I'm not really worried about it. that it's still going. I can stop it, which doesn't update the toggle. I can rewind it, but I'm going to start back. So these are the initial values of the eighth notes. I can slow down. But you can hear the duration values are still going. Back to eighth notes. Triplets. And I have made a mistake, which I usually do. I say triplets and I type out dotted eighths. Now 16th notes. And then stop the metro. So that's a very basic introduction to using note values in musical time. I'm going to, in the next video, talk about how we can store these messages in a different way and some ways we can control the transport through the patcher rather than global transport, so that we can see what's going on. So stay tuned for that. Thanks. Bye.